Tuesday as well as today as thick, dark smoke from Canada's hundreds of blazing wildfires blanketed the skies of the Northeast, Midwest, the Ohio Valley, and the Mid-Atlantic. The haze has triggered dangerous air pollution warnings impacting tens of millions of people, with New York City reporting the worst air quality in any major city worldwide Tuesday. There are over 400 blazes burning across nearly all of Canada's 10 provinces and territories, forcing tens of thousands of people to evacuate. The province of Quebec is facing some of the worst fires, many caused by lightning, covering neighboring Ottawa and Toronto with an orange haze. U.S. and Canadian officials are urging people with heart and lung issues and other vulnerable groups to remain indoors as much as possible. Record-breaking heat waves continue to plague much of the planet. The heat index in Puerto Rico reached 125 degrees Fahrenheit this week as the island is hit by the combined effects of a heat dome, El Nino, and climate change. Meanwhile, many Asian countries are sweltering under a prolonged heat wave, including Bangladesh, where are dealing with frequent power cut outages as temperatures topped 105 degrees Fahrenheit. Many workers are still forced to spend hours outdoors with no relief.
The water shortage and the heat are suffocating us. Not a leaf is moving anywhere. There's no shade. It is becoming tough to pull a rickshaw. Very difficult.
This comes as a new study published this week by Nature Communications finds the Arctic is expected to be ice-free during the summer months, starting as early as the 2030s. Even in a best-case emissions reduction scenario, which the world is not currently on track to achieve, scientists say the loss of Arctic sea ice in the summer is now inevitable in the next few decades. Activists from the direct action group Climate Defiance stormed a talk hosted by the news site Semaphore in Washington, D.C. Tuesday, shutting down Senator Joe Manchin's keynote address.
It's because he takes the most money from fossil fuel corporations. He has received over $1 million just in the last year alone from fossil fuel interests. He's the number one recipient of fossil fuel money in Congress. 23 days I was on strike because we did everything we're supposed to. I knocked on thousands of doors. I talked to hundreds of West Virginians. I did everything I was supposed to.
Manchin was promoting so-called permitting reform, which allows for the fast-tracking of fossil fuel projects. The recently passed debt limit deal gave the green light to expedite the 300-plus mile-long frack gas Mountain Valley pipeline through West Virginia and Virginia. Evacuations continue in southern Ukraine as some 42,000 people are at risk of flooding along the Dnipro River after the Nova Kakhovka Dam collapsed on Tuesday. Russia and Ukraine have traded blame for its destruction. The UN has warned of grave and far-reaching humanitarian consequences. This is a resident affected by the flooding.
The situation is literally critical. If the water rises another meter, we will lose our house. We are moving our stuff to neighbors now who live on higher ground. The Russians want to destroy a Ukrainian nation and Ukraine itself, and they don't care by what means because nothing is sacred for them.
Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador's ruling political party has won the gubernatorial election in the state of Mexico, dealing a major blow to the Institutional Revolutionary Party, or PRI, which had held the state's governorship for nearly a century without interruption. Morena candidate Delfino Gomez won in the vote. Her victory continues to mark the PRI's decline in Mexican politics since AMLO's election to the presidency. The state of Mexico is the most populous in Mexico, surrounding much of Mexico City. In related news, Mexico's Foreign Minister, Marcelo Ebrard, announced Tuesday he's stepping down to run for president in next year's election. In France, protesters took to the streets around the country and transport workers staged strikes Tuesday as opponents of President Emmanuel Macron's pension overhaul seek to revive public momentum against the reform nearly 2 months after it was signed into law. A long-shot amendment is being brought to the National Assembly by leftist lawmakers, though it's not expected to go anywhere. Many demonstrators say they just want their voices heard. This is a student from Nantes.
The reform passed without our democracy, so it's important to make the government understand that we never wanted this reform and that it's time for the people to speak, because it shows that the government cares less and less about people's will, and so it's important that we take the power back on that level.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken's in Saudi Arabia, where he met with Crown Prince, de facto head of state Mohammed bin Salman in Jeddah. Blinken said the pair, quote, discussed deepening economic cooperation as the U.S. vies to increase its sway in the region, including over gas prices amidst competing bids for influence from China and Russia, and to push for the normalization of Saudi-Israeli relations. As a presidential candidate, Biden vowed to make Saudi Arabia a pariah over its human rights record and the assassination of journalist, Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi. In related news, Iran has reopened its embassy in Saudi Arabia after it recently restored diplomatic ties in a Beijing-brokered deal. In sports news, the PGA, the Professional Golfers Association of America, announced a merger of their PGA Tour with the Saudi Live Golf Tour. The news came as a shock to much of the sports world, as the PGA spent months trying to undermine the venture from participating in PGA events. Critics say it's the latest example of sports washing to gain cultural and corporate influence by a country accused of massive human rights violations. The UN Relief and Works Agency has only received about a third of the $300 million in funding and aids from international donors to continue its humanitarian work in the occupied territories and Palestinian refugee camps in surrounding countries. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned UNRWA is, quote, on the verge of financial collapse. Meanwhile, a group of Gazan children Tuesday demonstrated in front of the local office.
And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensei Al Bob, here to tell you a story. And that was Democracy Now! With Amy. Amy's good. She's a little, Amy. But that was a good example of duality, right? Good and bad, right? Light and dark, And so I've been writing, thinking about this. Here's a few things. And, I go into shamanic state before I do this show. Right from wrong, change through stillness. No self-righteousness. Wake from our separation into oneness with love, unconditional oneness of love's co-creation, unconditional forgiveness of love's co-creation. That is what we need right now, more than anything, right? And it was a nice litmus thing. I mean, all these things happen, the fires in Canada, which are covering all of North America with a deadly smoke. Did that just happen? Oh, was it a mistake? Oh, what happened? No. None of this stuff is just happening. This is all manifested, right? Whether it's manifested by Mr. Globaloney or manifested by the energetics of people being so stressed out. And they're on a course for suicide. What I just played from Democracy. So, 20 years ago, I basically was at the zenith of my griotness within the who is basically the hitman for corporate structure, right? And so God kept, nothing happens to any of us if God doesn't put it there for us to do, or in our way, or any of those mechanisms. I mean, all of what's going on this planet right now is God-given. Now, I myself have issues with that word God because I'm a guy who's big into etymology. Where's the word come from? And in the beginning there was the word. Well, where'd that word come from? Good question, right? Anybody there got any answers or postulations or theories or what is that? Oh, it's a little kitty cat. And here I am. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensei Alba. Me drinking, dirty water, really. It's the best I get to coffee. So, anybody want to throw something in my PayPal account? Be really nice, right? That dude awake 42 at Gmail. The dude awake 42 at Gmail. The dude awake 42 at Gmail, right? Ting tang wah bing bang. Ting tang wah bang bang bang. My friend, the witch doctor, he told me what to say. The dude awake. Yes, that's it. The dude awake 42 at Gmail. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. And how are you doing with your duality these days? It's a form of suicide. I would stop it. Let's see. Wake from our separate creation of love's forgiveness. Oh, there goes Mr. Truck. The beginning of shifting. I mean, that's kind of, and in the beginning, there was the word. It was all dark, and then it was light. And that's like the shifting, the beginning, right back then. And if that doesn't tell us that the only thing that exists is now, right here, this minute, this second, right? And what time do we got? Yeah, okay. So I'm waiting for my friend. Um, and it's summertime. He's a teacher, so he kind of has off, but he still has meetings and he still has to do stuff. But he likes sharing time with me because I talk about things that no one else talks to him about. Like all the stuff I just wrote down. Move through the suffering. See, you can't see the cause of suffering is the fear, right, of our ego losing control. Our ego letting go of what is prescribed by the orthodoxy of the status quo. Right? Move through the suffering. That's the root. The change, the beginning, the shifting is from drama. I mean, all of this stuff that's going on, the war in frigging everywhere is a drama that's run by script. If you can't see this, either of those two moron Vlad, this is the war between Russia and Ukraine is the war of the two Vlads. That's the soap opera. And through the sands of time comes the war of Vlad. And that is basically a scripted thing from the egocentric oligarchies of Mr. Globaloni, and it's not a single national state. It's not America trying to be imperialist. No, it's NATO trying to. No, it is a oligarchy of a power structure that has been around since. And in the beginning, because it had to be. God made everything. So he made this shifting. We have to go through this materialism to shift. We were put in the Garden of Eden, right? Where everybody was vegetarians, right? Walking around naked, no problem. I once visited a friend of mine, and I was working for the Desperate Lawyers, and I had to put out what we were going to do that week. I mean, the Desperate Lawyers, meaning we had a contract negotiations, and I had been at the Desperate Lawyers working out with their staff on how we were going to strategically negotiate this, right? And so we put forth things that they just couldn't understand because they're used to the legal status quo way of negotiating. Me, not so much, right? I was going to show up looking like a homeless guy with two dogs that would, either love them to death or chew them up. And I'd have two half naked titty dancers who were going to school studying law. And they were going to get a nice check and a foot in the door of this law firm. Them in my mouth, and the rich people who thought the world revolved around them, who that's why they were holding up this contract, because they wanted what they wanted, because their egos told them that they had that take control. I'm in control. I'm in control. Sound familiar? Sound like your household? Sound like your relationship with your family, parents, significant other? Have to let go. So to get those Nimrods, the rich guys, to let go, you had to like slap them around. Well, you physically couldn't, but emotionally and shamanically, I could. Your sensei Al Bob could. Your griot here to tell you a story. Anyway, so I worked them, and then I went up north to visit my friend, and I really didn't respond to the lawyers. I set out a whole protocol I wanted them to produce, and they were, sending me text messages and stuff on my email saying, and my email, the dude awake 42 at Gmail, dude awake 42 at Gmail, dude awake 42 at Gmail, dude awake 42 at Gmail. Send me some money. I don't have the Desperate Lawyers anymore. I'm doing it for you. I'm sitting in this car being a homeless guy for you. Really, for me. I'm following what God tells me to do. And actually, God told me to do the thing with the Desperate Lawyers and exist in a hedonistic life. I mean, I hang at these three different churches, and I told my story to this one very, the Ku Klux Klan Baptist church, and those people they're so much sweeter than the Methodists or the Catholics, right? Catholics are Methodists. I own everything. God gave it to me. I own it. J.P. Morgan. Rockefeller. Oh, that's me. I own everything. It's all me, 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 me. That's this. Let's see. Let's see if I can get this. This should be fun. This is the this is a very strange church. Whoops, wrong button.
Kissingerism. This is independent alternative radio. For copies of this program, just call us at 1-800-444-1977. Again, that's 1-800-444-1977. Or go online.
They have been, as David Ponce, he has alternative radio. He's been doing it, I don't know, 40 years. And what he does is he sponsors lectures by really Noam Chomsky, you name it, and Chris Hedges, you name it, anybody. I mean, just he's got 40 years of doing this once a week. Unbelievable lectures. But that's not what I'm looking for. That's not it.
Post-American world.
Memorial Day massacre that helped Progressive Senator Robert La Follette subpoenaed the suppressed footage of the attack. This was the first time.
I was a sophomore in high school when I first read the autobiography of Malcolm X. And it was one of those three transformative texts in my life. I could never see my
Bombs around this world's largest cave in Hungary.
Terry, when I reflect on my life, I'm grateful. I had
Places have become killing fields.
It's time to act.
The guy
David Allen Bloom points out how our society is decaying and coming apart because of our denial of absolute. You're not being on a theological basis, at least not evidently in his book. But it's interesting, the closing of the American mind. Must reading if you have the sensitivity in this area.
Yep.
I mean, Bhagat Singh Thind, who serves in World War I, he wants to become an American citizen, and he basically says, well, look, under the law, I'm Aryan because I came from North India, and therefore I'm a pure blood Aryan.
Yep.
And this is the argument that he...
We're primarily interested in how it might apply to us. On the other hand, I want to keep some historical perspective here. Isaiah is writing at a time just prior to, but about the time that the northern kingdom Israel is going into captivity. The Assyrians are dominant about 722 BC. They going on that is getting food supplies in their medical assistance blankets, and of course our solar-powered audio Bibles.
World Mission's work distributing audio Bibles and humanitarian.
Hey, desire to look into. We are the son.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken seeking a U.S. investigation into her killing. Under U.S. pressure,
His dying grandfather. We get a close-up look at Davidson's tortured life as a celebrity. In one sequence, a gossip site falsely reports his death, sending his mother, played by Welcome to Grace to You with John MacArthur on 91.5 WHCB. You don't have to be a historian to know that. The picture is of a thin area that God just cuts right through the waters that surround the earth. All our desire to glorify.
Do it. Now, that doesn't mean that you just look for busy work and that you take up any task, but it's whatever you find to do that is honorable and godly and biblical. Let's look at the book of Nehemiah, chapter 4. Nehemiah, chapter 4, verse 6.
That's what it was. And thousands of thousands is what he said. In other words, heaven was filled with a voice that said, "Oh, that is worthy.
This is in the chapter.
He's worthy. The Bible tells us when he was born, there was a heavenly host. Filled the skies. And begin to sing about the birth of Jesus and the glory. But I got a feeling this was more than those shepherd's eyes could have even seen. It wasn't just a few that they looked up to sing, but the Bible said it was tens of thousands, times 10,000. He's worthy.
We haven't been in catch up like this one.
The Bible tells us in the New Testament. Praise God. Thank you.
People start talking in tongues in this
But
country.
the folk acting plumb ridiculous. Yes.
I mean, they're very nice people. They really are.
Let's take a minute. Coats off.
I
They was laying it down in the white line. Let me say this.
I'm talking now.
Let's lay them down for a donkey to walk on. Because Jesus was set down that donkey. Come on now. Y'all need to quit that. Jesus said, if we should hold their feet,
brothers. That's what it is. Oh. Anyway, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensei Al Bob, me. And we're talking about, what are we talking about? Duality. Now, that wasn't duality. That's a Roman Catholic church sounding like a Pentecostal church on crack, So those people are scared out of their underpants. That's why the other guys from the Mormons, they got golden underpants because they were crapping in them so much because they were so scared they had to get golden ones. I mean, that's why that guy said, "What happened to your underpants?" "Oh, God gave me golden ones." No, he was crapping in them. I don't believe a word I say. Don't believe a word I say. This is all for comic relief. Everything I've said so far is supposed to be funny. Are you laughing yet? Are you laughing yet? Huh? Are you? Are you? Are you laughing yet? Is it funny? So every morning I wake up to real pain. Not just, make believe pain that you see on television advertised as pain. No, real pain. And like smart 5:45 maybe, somewhere in there. And my eyes popped open. Basically this is your Sensei Al Bob sleep. And then all of a sudden, no alarm or anything, just Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. Conscious intent, unconditional forgiveness I am. Conscious intent, unconditional forgiveness I am. Conscious intent. And then I fall back asleep. And then I kind of wake up. And I spit up death. I spit out death. Spit out death. Then I go into meditation. Consciously intent, breathing in the prana of God's unconditional love, filling my lungs. Filling my lungs. Letting go. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive into temptation. And deliver us from evil. Is now, ever shall be, world without end. And then I usually turn that light over my head. And I grab my little book. See, that's me right there. Astro Boy. Right? I got a fish tank for a head. That little fish is between my ears, and it's chewing away at the cottage cheese. That is my brain. That is your brain. That squishy thing between our ears is just one of our brains, and the least of them. Right? We have this brain. We have cerebral cortex, where we have the reptile brain, the mammalian brain, and then the central cortex, which is where our chakras come from our base and go up to this and then keep going as a golden fiber optic line up into our Akashic records, right? That's our subconscious mind. least that's what Freud liked to call it, right? But people, Max Planck, you should read Max Planck when he's talking about basically. He says everything starts with consciousness. You know, everything else is an illusion, right? And consciousness is love's co-creation. Right? So that's what you got to do. You know, conscious intent. I am conscious intent. I am conscious intent. I am. Conscious intent, I am. Conscious intent, I am. Conscious intent, I am. Om. Forgiving, I am. Unconditionally forgiving, I am. Unconditionally forgiven, I am. Om. Conscious intent, I am. Conscious intent, I am. Conscious intent, I am. Om. So that's how I wake up in the morning. And by the time I do that, I put on my leg braces, put on my orthopedic shoes. Well, first I put on my pants, then my socks, then my leg braces, then my orthopedic shoes. And then I get up and I walk outside and I do my breathing exercises. And I visualize that vibration of my own is breaking up all the plaque in all my arteries and veins and capillaries and my cell structure, bringing it into non-duality, right? Bringing it into balance, homeostasis, clearly. Then I do my katas, right? And that is basically Tai Chi mixed a little with push hands of Qigong and Kung Fu and two other Eastern disciplines that my master taught me. And that physically gets everything moving in a harmonic way while I'm going, then I'm good to go. And then I kind of walk over to a bush and I water it. And then God has put in my mind, okay, you need to move your laundry from that line over to this line, but first take the clothes that are on that line and put them in the drying space, and then move those under the tree, getting the aromatic of the tree now into the line where when it rains like it is now, it'll wash, right? And I spritz it with a little compound that I made of Dr. Bronich peppermint and lavender soap, and a little lest oil, and a little and shake well, and Dollar Tree detergent for clothes, liquid, and I spray it on in a mist on the clothes, and then I turn them over and do the other side, and then I went up and I am building up. So Deep Green is a lot inside a defunct scam of a gated community, and it was this whole area up in the northwest of Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia, West Virginia, and Kentucky was like, it's where the Appalachians is, and Appalachian people live there, and the holler folk, I call them, because I live in the Sawtooth Mountain accordion, 200 square mile neck of woods accordion, shaped like an accordion, square, Sawtooth Mountain ranches. Where Rono, Nancy, of that place, and a number of great and minor ley lines go through all of that. And that is one reason between the 1885 to up in Kingsport, right? And she was there. The guys who are now Lockheed Aerospace, not Lockheed Aircraft, but Lockheed Aerospace. People who are now Martin Grumman Aerospace. People who were Raytheon, I think Univac was who they were. They were all there, and ETSU was there because this was an amazingly great research spot, and they would make. They had industry there, but they were making industry to develop the prime entity of the technology of plastics material. What today is material handling, or what is now micro tubes, nanotechnology, all started there between 1885 between 1885 and 1955. It was quite interesting. No black folk here at all, but the really smart black folk who were down south, who the great black migration after the Civil War, um, came up north to Chicago, Illinois, Detroit. The really smart ones and the highly skilled ones came here to work in these labs manufacturing the technology, meaning some guys would get an idea about something and say, well, China's making a still, right? And the black folk were technically adroit, meaning their hands were really handy. And Irwin Library, if you go to Elizabeth, you go to Johnson City Library, you go to Jonesboro's Library, and you go back in their microfiche, they still have microfiche. They haven't been digitized. So the story hasn't been changed yet, right? And you go to those microfiches, and all those libraries have some good librarians and also archivalists. And I, over the years, went and visited them. Archivalists are like Indiana Jones. They love a mystery. They love a hidden treasure. So you put them on the direction of it, and they do it. And that's what I do. I don't go do that stuff. I mean, I used to, but not the. And because he's in such distracted pain and suffering, he's been hurting himself. He's a farmer, and he was out in the field, and he was trying to pull this, this metal thing, that rod that was in the gun, and he nearly planted it right through his eyeball into his brain, but instead, he could have gotten it right there and hit his sinus, which he would still going up through his brain. But instead, he hit. Didn't you give me? Let's go see a doctor. Why would I do that? Because what happened? His sons, both of them, who were smart, good guy, farmer guys, got hurt being farmer, and that's it. They both died of this little town, this little village. like a, 3 families, and they're all from OxyContin coming from this one pharmacy, right? Which will go unnamed. But, you know, it, the DEA just said, I wonder why 500,000 prescription for OxyContin came out of here last year. So I woke up. On my stove. I have I have 2 big. I have 2 big cast iron frying pan that grandma. It's like, from the 90s, before China made them. And it's a gigantic one. I think at least 12 inches, maybe burner, and it heats that up, and I can cook any. I baked bread in it. Grandma showed me how to bake bread, and really good biscuits and cornbread. The stupid moron, Colonel Sanders and the slaves. I said, guys, I got something. Oh, we're in a hurry. We're gonna make money. We're prepared. We gotta make money. I gotta make money. I gotta make. Alcohol. I'm eating. McDonald. We should relax. Separation from reality. It's called duality. Maybe you should be in a non-duality state. That's kind of what reading the Bible is about, because it helps. That's kind of what reading the Bible is about, because it helps you separate from. Anyway, and every time they do, sometimes I wait. I can hear the trucks. I put something in a recycle. This one guy, did you drink out of this? I said, yeah, about 20 times. What? You're done. I said, please. The alcohol that you guys, you hit in the same bottle, a crack pipe you're smoking out of, you worry about those germs more than this. I'm near death all the time, but you ever see me get sick? No. Thank you, God. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you for this will. So 40 minutes and 36 seconds. How much juice do we still have? Oh, we still got at least. Let's put my glasses on so I can see that. I think it's, what is it? Oh, it's 70%. So we got a long time. So wait for my buddy to show up. It's 11:45. I said I'd be here at 11:15. I got here early. I got here about 10:15 because I can use the internet here. So anyway, no phone signal. That's a drag. So thumbs up. So whoever there who gave me a nice thumbs up, thank you. And any kind of comment. But every time I feed those guys, get something. And whoa, I should move this. I don't slow it up. So I found a box of it from the Bible. Maybe they do. This is really thin paper, really small print. Oh, here we go. This is what I found. I found about 100 of these. And I've been going to all the different churches because the counties around here. This is the last of the little. It's about 5 or 10 little red schoolhouses. I mean, they're not little red schoolhouses. They're like a brick building built in the 1960s, and they have maybe 10 classrooms, a gymnasium, cafeteria, and it's from kindergarten to 9th grade. Right? The county. One's usually in the county seat. That's the big one, and then the next biggest little substance. It'll be kind of like the most. And instead of tracking every which way. You can only walk a distance of 15. And if you want to get a good idea of this, go um, read Stephen King's Under the Dome. I think he wrote that in 70 something, 80 something, sometime before the O's. But that's basically the metaphor of what everyone's going to live in. Basically a prison. Right? And everything that you have, will be no money. You know, we almost, didn't get our credit card updated up, right? And there were a bunch of Republicans and Democrats who were, we're going to go, it's, America into receivership, and you do what we say. Oh, that's scary shit, man. Oh, that's gonna happen. We're gonna do it. We're stupid enough to let it happen. We're stupid. We are owned. Every politician, from the president to the dog catcher in your neighborhood, is owned. They got it all checked. That's why that guy, who picks his nose and eats it, and then has sex with the animals, he's a congressman, and he does what he said, like that mansion guy. He lives in a mansion. The guy, Joe Manchin, he lives in a mansion. I don't think that's his name. He was his boss, but he was his president. Just like Kamala Loverlips, she's actually a guy because she's all for transgenderism and LGBTQMOUSC. Why? Because we love you. MOUS because we're number one. We're number one. We're number one. We're number one. No, we're not. We're not even. We're a corporation. Nixon, when he took us all the gold standard, he, good old Rothschild bought us. But, so what was going to back our dollar if we didn't have gold and silver backing it? Well, what it is you, buddy. That's what the Matrix movie's about. You're in that bathtub, being an ever-ready battery. Good luck. You're number one. You're number one. You're number one. So, yeah, you should get involved. Like read a newspaper. Oh, I don't want to know what's going on. I listen to Tucker. I listen to Tucker. Listen to MSNBC. That girl with the glasses. I think is she a guy? I think she's a guy. Is she a guy or a reptile? What's his name? David Icke. He's always talking about reptiles. He's looking more and more like a reptile. You talk about it, and then you're. Do I look like a reptile? Do I look like are my eyes blinking sideways? Am I a reptile? Are you scared yet? Are you scared yet? Are you scared? Yes, this is. Hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensei Al Bob. And I'm here just to entertain. This is just fun and giggles. Nothing is true. There is nothing true. It's all fake news. I love Carrot Head. Carrot Head took a sledgehammer to the clockwork orange of our corporate government C. Congress passes all these great laws that sound really good, but then they give the authority to administer them to institutions. Work for Lockheed and Boeing and Martin Marietta and blah, 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 blah. Now I'm running the FAA. Oh, my good buddies at Boeing. Oh, they want to make an airplane. Oh, we're not going to. Oh, I'm going to trust them. They do a good job. I used to work there. Yes, I was vice president of engineering, but all I ever did was sharpen pencils. Hey, we're number one. We're number one. How many of those aircraft, corkscrewed into the ground? We're number one. We're number one. And what, that aircraft that went into that building, that started all the wars in the Mideast, It was just an aluminum thermos with two engines on it, and it smashed into a building. It was designed to withstand being hit by two 707s in the 19. That was a good airplane. That was like built like a brick shithouse, you know? Ooh, did I say that? We're number one. We're number one. Good luck, kids. It's called duality. How could that one airplane, the World Trade Center was built, its structural integrity is the outside of the building. It was called the bird cage for a reason. It was like it's like steel. I mean, where all the windows were, those columns between them were these 24-inch by 24-inch steel squares that were intricately connected, all from the top to the bottom, you know, and they were manufactured in a factory, rivets in there to hold it there. Then they stick, and coming out of it is rebar from the other one below it, and they basically pour concrete in there with that rebar, and now it's a concrete, stressed concrete that has many rebars in it, surrounded by 24 inches of steel that are first riveted and then welded, and then plates on the sides welded all the way around. So it's this integral, beyond reinforced concrete. And at where every floor is, more steel goes into those things before they pour the concrete in. And they used, and each floor was 4 foot thick of pre-stressed concrete, rebar mats, which release the kind of steel that holds up the Golden Gate Bridge, the George Washington Bridge, the suspension bridge, those kind of cables that are like aircraft cable with super duper steel. They wove steel through it and brought it to tension, poured 4 feet of concrete. And there are all kinds of pipes in there, plumbing pipes, electric pipes. And I know this because I was an apprentice electrician, IBEW, local 3. Everything about the World Trade Center was built like it was on an assembly line. Down to everything galvanized. But the things that I would bend, and that's all I did for about 8 months, was sit at this green leaf. You could set a little dial same way for as many hundreds of those you wanted. So they would have these trusses with Kindorf that they would clamp the steel. They give me a list of how many of these they wanted, and I would knock out 10, 20, 30, 100 of the same end, because it was perfect every single time. But you had to think, measure distance, right? And basically what I did, talk to the architect and look, and I'm sure he did too, but he was just an architect. He had one of his engineer people, and we made this list, for 20 days of all the bends had to be made, so I could know where to set the dials. And it was legit. They basically, that's how I went from being an apprentice to being a master electrician, mastered steward electrician, the IBEW, right? And I started out when I was 17. We had to go to school, right? The first day I showed up at school, down at the Union Hall, and this guy, he said, your teacher will be here any moment. I showed up. I showed up. And one of the guys, I don't think, they took our names. I think it's like at school, I used to just lay around and give my name, and then I'd leave after that. Maybe we can just go. Wait a minute, guys. Don't you want to learn how to be an electrician? And he goes, why? My Uncle Tony got me this job. He's a contractor. He runs a recycling plant in Staten Island. It's like, I do. Why don't we work together? And and teach out, there's a book. When we just read the book together, it's a book. When we just read the book together, and we'll learn. And me and about 6 guys said, "Yeah, I want to learn this stuff." And about 6 guys said, "Yeah, I want to learn this stuff." So they saw this as their opportunity, and most of those guys were women or black or Hispanic. The white guys left. It was 2 women, and they were in Italian, they were French, and Polish, and Indian, no Russians. Anyway, so I said, I kind of got, because I was already an electrician. I had already, I'm 17. I started working for Grandpa Stoll, and it was a 3-hour class. And so basically, I said, we're going to do this. We're supposed to be given half, we're supposed to brown bag. I said, and I've been doing this since I was 9. I'm just now being in the union because this is the youngest you can do as an apprentice, And when we're having that discussion, I look up and there's a guy in the door, right? And he's just watching. He's not saying or doing anything or interrupting. He's just watching. So I go, okay, I think we've done enough. I want everybody to go home, read this whole book, right? Just read it. Just flip through it, see it, underline stuff, right? The first week of this apprentice schooling was every day. And then after that, it was 2 days a week, and the other 3 days we worked. And then they switched it to nights to go. Anyway, so that first day, and so the guy goes, and they all leave, and I stay there, and the guy comes in. He goes, "So, Bob never showed up." I said, "No one showed up except for somebody who took the that we were here." He goes, "Yeah, I have that list on the clipboard here." He goes, "But there were about 6 guys missing." I said, "Yeah, pretty obvious who they were." I said, "Yeah, who are they?" I said, "I don't know." So I basically he goes, "So you did a pretty good job teaching us. You want to keep teaching it?" I go, "Yep." I said, "But I read the book about the bylaws and the way the union works, and isn't journeyman supposed to be teaching this class?" He goes, "Yep, smart kid. Grandpa told me you were smart." And he goes, "Yeah. So you're a journeyman now." I said, "So today's my first day in the union, and I started this morning as an apprentice, and now I'm a journeyman." He goes, "Yep." And I said, "Isn't there a kind of thing in between apprentice and journeyman?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's called a mechanic, but to teach this course, you got to be a journeyman." So I said, it said in that book, it usually takes 2 years and that's if you're really good." He goes, "Yeah, but your grandpa Saul's guy, his son." I said, "No, Mike's his son." "Oh, you're Mike's son." And it's like, who's on first? Because they're both Mike. Grandpa and Mike, they're both Mikes. Mike was junior. He didn't like being called junior, so Grandpa just was Grandpa, and Mike was Mike. And Mike built, the Seagram's building. He wired the Seagram's building. He wired the UN. He wired, he built skyscrapers. Grandpa took care of all of the old stuff that he had wired like in the 1890s up to 1940, right? And he was Mr. High Voltage Transformer guy, right? So the guy goes, "So, okay, so you're a journeyman now, and come with me upstairs. I'm going to get you your card. So you will be a card carrying journeyman." So I go up there, and there are a couple old timers up there who I know who are like patting me on the back. "Yeah, you're doing a good job." And so that's my first day, I'm in Local 3, IBEW. I went from apprentice to journeyman, right? And then I did that, and I worked for Mike, and I worked mostly for Grandpa, still fixing old stuff. But I worked more than I had worked for Mike because that was all union stuff. Now I had a union card. I was doing union stuff. And Mike was more my dad than my father was. My father was just a sperm donor. You know? Later in life, I had some fun. I mean, my father had a really gung ho, over the horizon attitude. He was a bird colonel in the U.S. Air Force. Worked for Curtis, General LeMay. Was ready to, My dad built. My dad did not fly airplanes. He was an administrator, so he helped build SAC. He administered it, worked on. That's why I have a really good strategic kind of mind because I got it from my dad. Right? I got a lot of good and bad things from my parents. Anyway, so from then that was the summertime, and then I went back to prep school, and I could have only done it working for these guys because that's how they looked at me. And because Mike had 5 daughters, no sons. He wanted a son. I was it, right? And so to get a master's license in New York City, you have to have 16 years of continuous W-2 forms, right? And I worked for these guys maybe 5 to 6 months a year. But the other, 5 to 6 months, I was going to high school at Winchendon School for Boys up there in New Hampshire, right on the border of New Hampshire and Massachusetts. And it was a school for the richest kids, richest boys in the world. Shavai Ran's son, Robert Kennedy's son, Joe Kennedy, was my roommate. Alex Orb, family owned U.S. Steel, Perry Dye, Seagram's, Hugh Hinman, the big paper company, Mead, and on and on and on, right? And Eddie Merrill, Ricky Lynch. These are all my, and from my class, I experienced. They were in my class. My class when it graduated, we had 30 kids that graduated from my class, right? And so this whole school had about 160 kids, the richest of the richest, and it was amazing because there was no bullies. Everyone kind of cut everyone slack because we were rarefied, and there were a couple of guys like me who were put there by and to rub elbows because I was going to be part of their clique, and I just, I was, but I was like an itinerant member of the clique because I'm still needed on a certain level. That's why I still have this YouTube channel, right? Because it's needed for a certain reason. And again, there is no bad or good gang. It's just duality going on, right? And if you go back, I would go back and watch my other shows. I have close to 2,000 of them. YouTube says I have 1,700. And I have 500 and something. You got to remember where you put stuff. So that's one of the tricks of not getting dementia. Do enough different things at once, but still stay focused on one thing. There's only one thing I'm doing. See, that was the beauty of being an electrician. You're working on one project. This is the end result. But to get that end result, there's 1,000 little things you got to do to get to there. So it's 12:11. So I'm going to give my buddy, let's see what democracy now has to say.
Tuesday demonstrated in front of the local offices of the UN Food Program after the UN agency recently stopped distributing financial and food aid to families in need due to funding shortages. The ongoing occupation and blockade of Palestinian land by Israel has put the unemployment rate in Gaza at above 45% as 2/3 of the population struggles to afford food.
I can relate.
Democratic Senator Chris Van Hollen is calling on the U.S. State Department to declassify its report on the killing last year of Palestinian-American journalist Shireen Abu Akleh by Israeli forces in the occupied West Bank. Van Hollen said the report offers some valuable information, though noted access to key witnesses was denied, and the findings cannot be considered a true independent investigation. Shireen Abu Akleh, a longtime reporter at Al Jazeera, was shot dead by Israeli gunfire last May while covering an Israeli raid in the occupied West Bank in Jenin. In Virginia, a gunman shot 2 people dead and injured another 5 Tuesday after a high school graduation ceremony at a park in Richmond, Virginia. Police arrested a 19-year-old suspect who was found in possession of 4 handguns. According to the Gun Violence Archive, it was the 279th mass shooting in the U.S. this year. This is Richmond Mayor LeVar Stoney.
This should not be happening anywhere. Anywhere. Whether it's in Richmond, whether it's in Virginia, whether it's in the United States, this should not be happening anywhere. A child should be able to go to their graduation and walk out their graduation and enjoy the accomplishment with their friends and their family.
In Florida, the family of Ajike A.J. Owens is seeking accountability after the Black mother of 4 was shot dead through her neighbor's front door last week. According to lawyer Ben Crump, the neighbor yelled at Ms. Owens' children for playing in a field next to their apartment complex and used racist slurs. When the children returned to retrieve a forgotten iPad, she threw it at them and hit a child. Ms. Owens went to confront the neighbor, and through the closed door, the neighbor inside, Owens outside, she shot and killed her. The neighbor has been identified as a white woman, though her name has not been released. The Human Rights Campaign has issued its first ever state of emergency for LGBTQ plus people in the U.S. amidst an onslaught of hateful legislation. More than 525 anti-LGBTQ state bills have been introduced in the 2023 legislative session. Over 70 of those have become law. The group released a guide listing state-by-state anti-LGBTQ laws and a Know Your Rights guide for LGBTQ plus travelers. We'll speak with HRC President Kelly Robinson after headlines. In related news, a federal judge blocked parts of a Florida law banning gender-affirming care for transgender youth. Judge Robert Hinkle asserted gender identity.
Okay, enough of that. Same as it ever was. Pretty much. Gotta realize this ain't nothing new, gang. This is very similar to what they called Jim Crow. Okay? Jimmy boy. Jimmy Crow. Jimmy Crow and I don't care. Jimmy Crow and I don't care. Jimmy Crow and I don't care. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway. Well, okay, I'm getting hungry. It's already, an hour later than we agreed. So I guess and we're getting close to not having juice. And it stopped raining. These are all reasons for me to say, see you later. I'm glad one person was sticking around. I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you did and found any of it entertaining, please give something to my PayPal. I could really use it these days. I need to fix this little horse. That's thedudeawake42 at Gmail, thedudeawake42 at Gmail, all 42 at Gmail. Okay. Jimmy Crackcorn, I don't care. Whoops, missed that. There it is. There we go.